The streets of Los Angeles were sun-kissed in the early hours of a Friday morning. The whole city screamed beauty as everyone made their way, hustling and bustling. Most of them were rushing to work, not taking time to bask in the beauty that was all around them. Amidst the city, the Elite Motors building stood proudly at the hive of the city. It was one of the buildings that received accolades for their building and also their business. The building was a stunning architectural piece that screamed luxury and sophistication. The structure was made of glass and polished steel, angling upward like a shard of glass, piercing the sky. The entrance was flanked with towering pillars, alongside a grand atrium. Stepping inside, the expansive showroom unfolded before one's eyes like a gallery of automotive art. The cars, of course, were the true stars of the show. They were arranged on elevated platforms, each one spotlit like a work of art in a museum. It was well known among people that only those who had a lot of money could afford to do anything there. Above the main floor, a mezzanine level overlooked the showroom, providing a bird's-eye view of the automotive splendor below. This was where the offices and private lounges were located, reserved for the most discerning clients and VIP guests. John Harris surveyed the showroom as he was replying various texts from some of their customers. He was the man of the game. That was why he could be the manager, and he knew it well. Most would call him handsome because of his sharp jawline and grey eyes. He watched as a dishevelled figure appeared at the entrance of the building, running past the security guards. Just a glance at the man who wore jeans, a faded t-shirt, and had unkempt hair made John irritated. This could be a potential threat to the company as a whole. "Can I help you?" John asked, raising his hand to halt the security guard from doing anything more. The man, whose gaze was all over the place, suddenly locked his eyes with John's for a second. His gaze dropped, and he mumbled, "Just looking. I see. Well, I'm afraid we don't allow browsing here. This is a high-end dealership, and our cars are for serious buyers only." The man's gaze flickered. "I'm looking for a Maserati. My brother has one." John raised an eyebrow. "A Maserati? I think you may be in the wrong place, friend." With a dismissive smile, John nodded to the security guard and turned to leave. But the man's next words stopped him cold. "Brother's got a Maserati. I need to find it." "Sorry, buddy. You're not going to find what you're looking for here. You're better off trying the bus station or a shelter." The man let out a shout, pointing around. "I'd be quick, I promise." Several stares went their way, causing John to move closer to the man. "Look, buddy, there are two ways in which this would go. You can either leave quietly, or I'd make your life miserable here and now. I just need a Maserati." John's hand grasped the man's arm, his fingers digging deep into the man's arms like talons. "You're not welcome here," he sneered. The man's eyes widened, as if pleading for him to answer him. John's gaze remained cold, unyielding. With a firm grip, John dragged the man toward the entrance, ignoring his stumbling feet. The man's protests were muffled, looking around at the multiple gazes that were struck at him. Sarah Mitchell's words were halted by the scene that was unfolding. She gave her client a small smile, apologizing for the distraction. The deal was closed, so all she had to do was to sort it out with her manager, who was causing a scene. Hastening her steps to the entrance, she watched as John shoved the man out of the building, and she couldn't help the way she felt uneasy. "Sir, that was harsh." She placed her hand on his arm. He seemed harmless. John's gaze snapped toward her as his eyes flashed anger. "Mind your own business, Sarah. This doesn't concern you." "It concerns me when we treat people like that. He was just looking for something." He scoffed, taking a look at her again as if she was out of her mind. He was looking for a handout. "We're not a charity, Sarah. We're a business. We're a business that relies on people, on relationships. Treating someone with kindness doesn't hurt our reputation. It enhances it. John's face reddened, biting his lower lip. You're not going to lecture me on compassion, Sarah. Take a good look at this man and tell me if he looks like a potential client. I know what it takes to succeed. And if you keep sticking your nose in where it doesn't belong, I'll make sure your sales commissions suffer. Cut them in half, if need be. She smiled, watching as John waited for a response from her. A response that he knew she wouldn't give. It was after he was sure that she wouldn't say more that he walked back into the building, muttering under his breath. Situations like this angered her to the core because she knew what it felt like to be discarded and not heard. As she looked around, she couldn't find the man anymore. I could swear that he was just standing here. Miss Mitchell, the boss wouldn't like to see you out here. One of the security guards by her side whispered to her ears. Sarah merely turned to the security guard, smiling at what he had just said. Well, he wouldn't even notice. Her feet shuffled their way further out of the building, closer to the open gates, yet she couldn't sight him again, and it felt like she had lost something all of a sudden. Maserati is beautiful. She recognized the voice immediately, turned and headed towards the parking lot. The parking lot was occupied by various cars of different sizes, ranging from the least expensive to the most expensive. She was sure that she heard the voice of the man, but she couldn't find him anymore. Her eyes scanned the area subtly, not wanting to call the attention of the manager, John. Her eyes finally landed on a familiar figure at the far end of the parking lot. The man was sitting on a bench with another security guard standing over him, but she could see that his eyes were on the cars, not on what the security guard was saying. She tapped the security guard's hand lightly. I'd take it from here. There was relief written over the security guard's face at her words. Hi, she said softly, introducing herself as soon as the security guard was out of earshot. I'm Sarah. I saw what happened earlier. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. The man's eyes flickered towards her just for a few seconds before returning to the cars. I'm David. He gazed lovingly at the cars. And I'm fine. Just looking for something. Sarah noticed that he wasn't really paying attention to her, as his focus fixed on the vehicles. She followed his gaze and saw that he was staring at a Maserati with a smile on his face. It's a beautiful car, isn't it? She took a glance at him, wondering how he looked so tattered, yet composed. David's smile widened at her statement, and for the first time, he gave her his full attention. Brother's got a Maserati, he muttered. Your brother owns a Maserati? She asked as she took a seat beside him, trying to understand. Sarah's heart went out to David, and she wanted to help him. I can show you the Maserati, she said, gesturing towards the back of the dealership. We have a few of the latest models in stock. His eyes lit up, and he followed her eagerly. As they walked towards the rear parking lot, she looked around, hoping that John was nowhere in sight. She wasn't supposed to be doing this, but she just had to. It was like showing a child new toys. It was clear that David seemed to be having some difficulty physically because of the way he repeated words over and over. The private lot was only accessible to specific staffs who had a unique ID, so there were no security officers nearby. If there were, she would have to explain why she was bringing in a man who looked homeless into such place. As they got in, she watched as his eyes looked like they would pop out of their sockets. This is one of our latest models. She finally stopped before one of the vehicles. Isn't it beautiful? David's eyes locked onto the car, having the same smile he had on since she had seen him. He reached out a hand, hesitated, then gently touched the car's surface, as if connecting with it. Sarah, what do you think you're doing? John stormed towards them. You're not supposed to be showing him around. I'm just showing him the Maserati, John.